Out at Climax, how Asia's inaugural 2020 cricket tournament came to a dramatic end. Sports psychopaths WADA's outgoing president talks to Sportsworld about the difficulties of dealing with doping. And we're on the road to 2010 to look at the difficulties of staging the FIFA World Cup in South Africa. Welcome to Sportsworld, Al Jazeera's regular look at sport around the globe. I'm Joanna Gajarowska. Now, it's been an important year for cricket. The World Cup in the Caribbean was beset with problems, but the sport received a huge boost with the resounding success of the World 2020 Championship. And now Asia wants to get in on the act. Lesser-known cricketing nations such as Yemen, Qatar, Oman and Afghanistan have been competing for the inaugural Asian 2020 tournament. And as Andy Richardson reports, the event came to a thrilling climax.
This was the moment Afghanistan's players and supporters thought they'd become Asia's inaugural 2020 cricket champions. In fact, it was just the beginning of one of the more chaotic episodes in Afghanistan's cricketing history, and one that's still being argued about to this day. Thankfully, the bulk of the event passed off in somewhat calmer fashion.
You're listening to HearCricket.com, live commentary for the ACC 2020 Trophy final and semi-finals being played between Oman and Kuwait.
Now, Kuwait probably isn't the first place you'd go looking for a cricket commentary box.
Dropped! As we said earlier, Butterfingers and an easy catch being dropped by Javed Chowdhury, the Kuwaiti fielder.
But the sport and all its attendant rituals were in evidence for this tournament,
So all the best and good luck.
which saw 10 emerging cricketing nations from across Asia competing for this title. Rain stop play, not a phrase you're likely to see on these scorecards. You will see plenty of sixes being recorded though. That's the appeal of 2020. Non-stop action crammed into a short playing time.
The 2020 format appeals to the youth, it appeals to older guys like myself, it appeals to children. It's a family outing. The whole family becomes part of the game. You see the excitement and you become part of it. Cricket is about enjoyment. You need to enjoy it.
Realistically, none of the countries playing at this tournament are suddenly going to jump up and start playing test match cricket. But the Asian Cricket Council believes the 2020 format offers these teams the best chance to make some sort of international impact and will also encourage more young people to take up the game. The 2010 Asian Games will see cricket play for the first time, and it's the 2020 format we'll be seeing. In 1992, Mohammad Iqbal Sikandar was winning the Cricket World Cup with Pakistan. He now works as a development coach throughout Asia and sees 2020 as being central to the sport's growth in the region.
2020, I think, would be the ideal thing to take it to the locals, where you can just work all day, finish work at 5, start cricket at 7, finish by 10:30. So this is, I think, is going to be very, very popular, and instead of getting worried, I'm more happy to see cricket getting more and more popular.
Afghanistan are one team who've definitely embraced 2020. While most of the teams competing in Kuwait were reliant on expatriate players, Afghanistan has its own distinct cricketing heritage. The story began during the Soviet-Afghan War of the 1980s and is one close to the heart of the current chairman of the Pakistan Cricket Board.
There were 3 million refugees, Afghan refugees in Pakistan, and they were all in the refugee camps. 70% were in the northwest frontier province, and a generation was born there and raised, and that's where they picked up their cricket. And I'm glad to see that, you know, they took it with them to Afghanistan. It's very heartening to see that the entire Afghan team are indigenous Afghanis and not expats. So I think at least their time spent in Pakistan in that respect was something that led to some good, and cricket benefited.
Afghanistan are now one of the fastest improving teams in world cricket. Despite the current instability back home, an academy is up and running in Kabul, and several of their best players have been taken on by first-class teams in Sri Lanka and Pakistan.
Cricket is, for the last 5 years, cricket is really exploded in Afghanistan, and all the youths are love to play this game. So that's the cause that we have a good, talented teams, not only the national side, we have a very good age group teams as well. In the history of Afghan sports, this is the first time that Afghanistan team is beating the other countries.
They're certainly a team that knows how to celebrate. This was how they marked their semi-final win against the United Arab Emirates. And such has been their progress, qualification for the 2011 World Cup is now a realistic possibility.
If the first we get placed in with international teams, then I think we will try to remain our place there and to beat everybody. So if we go there, this is the dream of all Afghans.
ICC has been there for the last 98 years, and in that period we only have 10 full members. When you look at the other codes, they've got more. We have to make sure that Test cricket filters down to the other areas.
Now to that final, where Afghanistan were up against Oman, another team full of expatriate players. It seemed every Afghan living in Kuwait had heard about the match, and even the ICC president was taking his turn in the commentary box.
It has done a lot of good for cricket.
He watched Afghanistan bat first and score 151 in their 20 overs. Defeat wasn't being contemplated on the boundary edge. But Oman looked on course to spoil Afghanistan's day as they edged ever closer to that total. A nerve-twisting finale was on its way. With one ball left, Oman required a single run to tie the scores and 2 to win. Now at this point, just about everyone thought the Afghan wicketkeeper had stumped out the Omani batsman to win the title for his country. But amid the chaos of celebration, some official forehead wrinkling had begun. Suddenly, the result was in doubt.
OK, so this is the situation. Everybody thought Afghanistan had won. In fact, that stumping hadn't been made. The batsman crossed, the scores finished level, so it's a tie. Now, technically, there should be a bowl out, which means both teams have 5 deliveries each at the stumps, but that would involve clearing the pitch, and at the moment we have thousands of fans on the pitch, and no one quite knows what's going to happen next.
The players did their best, but clearing the pitch simply wasn't an option. So after more forelock tugging, it was decided to try and organise the bowl-out, cricket's version of a penalty shootout, on a neighbouring ground.
Is it not better to go back there?
But with daylight fading, it was then deemed that conditions were no longer playable. The match was declared a tie. Oman and Afghanistan were joint champions.
You still must be very proud of your team.
Very much, yeah, because there are a lot of celebration in Afghanistan. All in the Kuwait, our countrymen are very happy, and this is the proudest day of my life.
The trophy did make a brief appearance before disappearing into the gloom. A manic day had reached a suitably frenzied conclusion. Andy Richardson, Al Jazeera, Kuwait.
Absolute chaos. Well, the World Anti-Doping Agency has had a difficult year. Olympic sprinter Marion Jones, former world tennis #1 Martina Hingis, and a host of cyclists in the Tour de France were among the big names who failed drugs tests. WADA have come out fighting, proposing bans of up to 4 years for dope cheats and reduced sentences for athletes who admit to cheating and cooperate with investigators. In light of these changes, Al Jazeera's Brendan Connor had a chance to sit down with Dick Pound, the outgoing president of the World Anti-Doping Agency.
Canadian lawyer Richard Pound has been a respected member of the International Olympic Committee for years. But 8 years ago, he was picked to head the newly formed World Anti-Doping Agency, a group mandated to catch drug cheaters in sport. His tenure is ending, and he'll hand over the reins to Australia's John Fahey. In our chat, I began by asking Richard Pound, how goes the battle these days against drugs?
The battle's a battle. I think we're making progress in it, and one of the, in general, if you're doing a canvas background, one of the real achievements over the last 8 years is we've increased the level of awareness in all kinds of publics about the nature and extent of the problem of doping in sport and the danger, both medical and ethical dangers.
Give me your thoughts as you leave this post, Dick, because I've heard a lot of tributes that you did a great job, but a lot of people say too outspoken, too controversial. You're a real Doberman. You seem like you got your teeth into this job.
You know, for the most part, you're dealing with deliberate, systematic, organized cheating for the sole purpose of gaining an unfair advantage. That has to be confronted. You can't sit around all holding hands and saying, aren't we all wonderful, and let's all play fair. People don't care. You're dealing with the sociopaths of sport. So you have to be confrontational.
So was 2007 a good year by your standards because you caught some cheaters with Marion Jones, Tour de France, several professional sports have had to knuckle under a little bit. Think that's a good year, or do you wish you didn't have to bring the hammer down?
Well, you wish you never had to, and you wish that none of these folks were using whatever they've been found to have used. But you'd like to think that the calculus of sport is pretty simple. Say, here's our deal. The race is 100 meters. This is how you score, and there's certain things we don't do or take, and we shake hands on that, and that's what sport should be about.
Can cycling ever remove the stain of the last couple of years? Is the Tour de France credible anymore?
Well, the Tour de France has had some bad years, and that's just a reflection of cycling generally. I think the old management in cycling denied, long past any point of credibility. New leadership has looked into this abyss and said, if we don't get some kind of a paradigm shift in what we're doing, we risk losing everything. I mean, you've got people not covering the Tour de France, you've got sponsors bailing out, teams folding. I think they've pulled back from the edge.
What lies ahead then? What can we look for the future? Am I hearing as many as 4,500 samplings targeted for Beijing? Like that would be half the athletes there. Is that a good thing?
I think that's a very good thing. I mean, not only in the fact that it's being done and it'll be done with all of the state-of-the-art technology and methods, but as a deterrent. You know, as an athlete, if you go there, the chances of you being tested are much greater than ever before. Your sport federation knows that that's going to happen, so they'll be doing testing beforehand. They don't want positive cases in their sport, and each country will say, we don't want to send athletes to the games that are doped, not just because it's a national embarrassment, but because it's contrary to everything we believe in terms of what sport should be.
Well, as ever, you can keep up to date with all the latest sports news on our website, aljazeera.net/English. Stay with Sportsworld, though, because coming up after the break, the difficulties of hosting a World Cup. We're on the road to South Africa.